I was supposed to get married last week, but it didn't happen because I pulled off a pretty bold stunt in front of all my friends and family. For background, my fiancée Chelsea, a 26-year-old woman, and I, a 28-year-old man, had been together for 3 years after we met through friends. However, I exposed her in front of everyone after she misled me into signing a secret contract for 40% of my salary, and we ended it all at the altar. We knew we were very different from one another, but we kept it a secret. After a year of dating, she moved in with me as well. We were getting serious, and eventually we talked about our future and decided that we were certain of our decision to get married and have children before the age of 30. She also told me that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and that she didn't want to work after having children. I was totally fine with that. Chelsea was not going to quit her job until we had our first child, so I assumed that we would have saved enough money together. That's why I don't understand why she came up with an unnecessary contract that she wanted me to sign, agreeing that I would give up 40% of my income each month and transfer it to her account so her future would be secure. I make good money working for a tech company, so I think I would be able to support my family with that. I had proposed to her almost 10 months prior, so she had had almost a year to tell me about her plans. I could have talked to her about this, and we could have found a common ground, but instead she tried to deceive me. If the contract wasn't frustrating enough, she decided to spring it on me just a day before the wedding, knowing that I wouldn't be able to do anything at the time. My mother-in-law, Donna, decided to come see me the night before the wedding with the contract. After she showed me the legal document and explained everything, I couldn't believe it and thought she was trying to manipulate me. So I went to talk to Chelsea about it face to face. When we got to her room to settle this, Chelsea revealed that this had actually been her idea, and my entire world fell apart. She told me that she had been considering it for a while. I was obviously very upset, but I tried to reason with her because it was literally the day before the wedding, and I couldn't think of any other way to handle the situation. She talked about this for a few months before the wedding, and because it was somewhat sensitive, she couldn't think of an appropriate way to bring it up. However, now it appears that before she committed to the wedding, she wanted me to sign this contract of hers so she would have some sort of financial security. We had a disagreement, and she told me that I was reading too much into this. I was upset with her because she had been very secretive about the whole situation, and I couldn't understand why she needed this so urgently, especially since she wouldn't even be leaving her job until she had her first child. I also couldn't understand why she had prepared legal documents for something like this, as it just made me feel like she didn't trust me. She put her foot down and told me that if I didn't sign that contract, she wouldn't get married. So in the heat of the moment, I decided to just put on a front smile and sign the contract before leaving and returning to my room without saying anything more. However, I was clearly not finished with it. I felt betrayed and hurt, so I decided that I was going to address this at the wedding in front of everyone. I'm not sure if it was right or wrong, but I suppose I'll find out from the comments. But I was so disappointed in Chelsea and her mother that I just wanted to make a statement. Nevertheless, the following day, everything went well until the point where we were meant to be at the altar, where she gave her vows and I was supposed to give mine. Instead, I took the contract out of my pocket and read it aloud to everyone, clearly confusing them all and making Chelsea blush. Clearly, Chelsea did not trust me, and after what had happened the night before, I did not trust her either. Instead of doing the normal thing, which is to have a conversation with me and come to a decision that both of us found acceptable after a relationship of nearly 3 years, she chose to be secretive and try to trap me into committing to something like this. I explained the contract to everyone and told them that this wedding was no longer going to happen. Following that, I tore up the contract into as many pieces as I could and left the venue without even turning around. I got into my car, and since I had already packed my bags and placed them in my trunk, all I had to do was drive for a while and find another hotel, which is where I have been staying since both of our families essentially went into chaos over my wedding-related actions and have been reacting ever since. Chelsea broke down in tears, and her family tried to console her. My family then tried to do some damage control with the guests and other things. After the situation was brought under control and the majority of the guests had left, our families had a lengthy conversation, and both of them agreed that what I had done was totally unnecessary, even if I didn't want to marry Chelsea after learning about it. I had the opportunity to sleep on it and do the right thing, but instead I chose to publicly embarrass Chelsea and make our families the subject of gossip among the guests at the wedding. Apparently, that makes me even worse than Chelsea, because what she did only hurt me. But what I did hurt Chelsea's family and even my family. They said that I could have simply told people about the contract and avoided all that drama. I will admit that what I did was dramatic and theatrical, but I can't say that it was an overreaction because I believe Chelsea deserved it, and I don't understand why my family believes otherwise. I also publicly apologized for my behavior and told people that I've been going through a lot of mental stress, which is why I did that. However, I don't think that's fair because I haven't been going through a lot of stress. Since we are not that important, people will gossip about this for a few days and then forget about it. But at least I will have the satisfaction of knowing that I stood up for myself against someone who tried to take advantage of me, or at least I'll have a meaningful story to tell people. However, the truth is that I don't do it for either of those reasons. This incident affected their reputation, or why they believe they have a reputation that can be ruined in the first place. The reason I did it was because I was upset that nearly 3 years of my life had been wasted with Chelsea. To be honest, I do want to get married and start a family, but I'm going to have to start over with someone else, and I'm not even sure if things will be the same. I'm also upset about a lot of other things because I still have a soft spot for Chelsea, and I truly loved her, which is why I'm even bothering to think about what I did even though it's been almost a week. Although I've had second thoughts since the incident, I still don't feel particularly motivated to publicly apologize to anyone. This is because I embarrassed my ex-fiancée's family and even my own family at our wedding, which never happened. To be clear, I don't mind that she was requesting money for her future. I believe that was fairly obvious when I first mentioned that she had told me she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. It's not like we have never talked about money. We have been together for 3 years and have lived together for 2. So of course we have talked about money, and we have always had a clear line of communication with each other at least about these things. I was totally okay with her being a stay-at-home mom after she had children, and I would have been okay with her coming up with a prenuptial agreement or something similar. I don't understand why she didn't feel comfortable enough to discuss this with me in the past. It's not like I ever gave her any reason to doubt me, and contrary to what many of you are saying, I'm not even that upset about her requesting a portion of my pay for herself. However, the fact that she wanted me to begin sending her money as soon as we were married bothered me because, in my opinion, I had assumed that she would only leave her job after we had children. Naturally, things would be different if we had children, as our living arrangements would be very different, but for the time being, we could have continued doing whatever we had been doing for the past 2 years. I realize that I am a little scattered right now, but this truly hurts. I've done my best to be a good boyfriend to her and have always respected her choices, so learning that she tried to trap me into doing this is strange. There was no need for it. I don't understand why she destroyed everything we had with this contract situation, but the damage is already done. Both of our families are against me, and she hasn't even bothered to talk to me since I left. At this point, I don't even have any expectations from anyone. I'm just hoping that this will all be resolved quickly so that I can try to move on from everything. Update 1. Hello, thanks for all the advice and comments. It's been a few days since I posted, and I haven't decided what I want to do yet, and I'm definitely not apologizing to anyone. I haven't spoken to Chelsea or her family because I don't think I owe them an explanation. I'm not married to Chelsea, and they won't be my in-laws anymore, and as far as I'm concerned, we are done. I don't think there's any chance of us ever getting back together, so we are done for good, leaving my family to fend for themselves. I've been holding back my feelings for the past week since the incident happened, but yesterday I finally spoke to my parents because I didn't know what to say to them. I wanted to talk to them in person, but they couldn't make the trip, so we had to talk on FaceTime. I explained my situation to them, and I ended up crying as I talked to them. I suppose that finally made them realize how broken I was, and they began attempting to console me, and instead of continuously criticizing me and telling me that I had damaged their reputation, they finally began to try to understand my point of view. I told them that I knew for sure what I had done, even though it might have been unnecessary, but at least I had done something, and even though it was petty, I needed to know that I didn't care what other people thought of me. My parents were the only people I cared about, and I told them that I truly needed their support because I was going through a really tough time. I also explained that I could understand their concerns about our family's reputation and that I had not spoken to any of my friends, but I knew that they were with me on this one because of all the encouraging emails and messages they had left for me. I explained that since we are not exactly public figures, people will continue to gossip about us for a while before moving on to the next big thing. They are afraid that people will be talking negatively about us, which is no excuse for them to fight with me, especially when I need them the most. After they finally realized this, we were able to resolve the issue, and now my parents and I are getting along just fine. Hello, it has been 3 days since my last update, and yesterday I decided very late in the evening that I was going to return home today after paying half of the rent as well. Since I couldn't afford to stay in the hotel indefinitely, I had to leave eventually, and I believe Chelsea should be the one to do so. I don't understand why she hasn't even tried to get in touch with me, but I packed my things and left this morning. Ever since the wedding incident, Chelsea's parents have been the only ones making a strong effort to get me to come home. They tried to reach out to me, but she hasn't said anything, so I was apprehensive about coming home because I didn't know what to anticipate. I had my keys with me, so I got them without any problems, but when I walked in, I was surprised to see that the place was much more empty than before. She hadn't bothered to say anything to me, likely because she didn't want to talk to me, so I couldn't understand that. Fully okay with me. I didn't have anything to say to her either, but I was just relieved that she had moved out without my having to tell her, and that I could now live in my own house without worrying too much about the arrangements. I'm not sure where she went, but I assume she moved back in with her parents or perhaps a friend, but it doesn't matter anymore because a lot of time has passed since the wedding, and I decided to start responding to everyone now that I'm back in the comfort of my own home who had texted me up until this point. I had only talked to my parents because I didn't want to talk to anyone else. To be honest, I wouldn't have talked to my parents at all if they hadn't been upset by what I had done at the wedding. I started answering messages, emails, and other correspondence, and I updated my friends on how I was doing. The majority of them were worried about me, but none of them really brought up Chelsea at all, because I suppose they didn't want to talk about anything sensitive. I'm trying to get back to normal because I've returned to work, working from home right now, because I really can't face my co-workers after the wedding fiasco, even though they told me that they totally understood. I told them that I was doing better now, but that's not exactly true because I'm still having trouble falling asleep at night and accepting that Chelsea is truly gone now. Nevertheless, it's not like they can do anything about it, so that's what I'm going with. As for update 3, it's been 3 weeks since the wedding, and up until now, I haven't been responding to Chelsea's parents. They have been texting me constantly, trying to reach me about something or other, but I really don't want to talk to them, and I haven't even been reading those messages. They won't judge me, but I suppose I just need some more time to accept things myself. At least I've returned home, which is a big step on my own. They wanted me to publicly apologize for my actions at the wedding, and I assumed that was what they would be talking about given the recent messages since they still haven't gotten what they want. However, today they actually showed up at my house and began insisting that I speak with them. I was a little alarmed, but I made the decision to speak with them and put an end to this since it was beginning to get on my nerves. I asked them what they wanted, and they said they wanted me to reimburse them for the money they had contributed to the wedding. I was surprised because, in my opinion, the wedding had already happened, and nothing had been canceled, and both of our families had contributed equally, so I couldn't understand why they were asking for money from me. I made it clear to them that I wasn't paying them back and told them to leave if that's what they came for. But they said I was being unfair because they had also spent a lot of money on the wedding, but everything was ruined because of me, so I owed them back because my pride destroyed everything. They even claimed that, in contrast to my family, they couldn't afford to lose that much money, so since I was the reason the wedding was called off, I had to do the right thing now. I lost my composure because they were being unreasonable and placing the blame on me, and I haven't been feeling well for the past few weeks. I walked out of my house and raised my voice, expressing my frustration. They were surprised by this reaction, but I didn't care. I just kept going. They had hurt me by coming at a time when I was already struggling, and I told them that it wasn't my fault that their daughter didn't have the courage to approach me and speak honestly. I'm not one for dishonesty, and I don't respond well to it either. I also told them that I had always treated Chelsea with love and respect, but the night before the agreement was announced, and if they truly didn't think there was anything wrong with that, either they had very different definitions of right and wrong, or maybe that's just how their family functioned and they expected me to adapt to it. If they truly want to talk about pride, they should probably talk to their daughter about it because she is the one who damaged everything with hers. Even the night before the wedding, it would have been very easy for her to just apologize to me, and we could have worked things out. However, when I confronted her about the agreement situation, I realized that if I did end up marrying her, it would be the biggest mistake that I ever made. I'm really grateful that I decided to walk away. I was prepared to make it work because we spent a lot of time together and we knew each other very well. I wasn't willing to give up on us, but she clearly was, because she had made it clear that she would not get married at all if I didn't sign that agreement and marry her on her terms. It was obvious that her pride was more important to her than marrying her fiancé. She damaged everything, and Donna was the one who supported her through it all. Regarding the money, I didn't even owe them anything because they had chosen to pay for the wedding. No one had persuaded them to do so or forced them. Therefore, their request that I reimburse them and bring my family and other belongings was totally pointless. They were only trying to stir up unnecessary drama, and I wasn't going to have it because their daughter had already caused me enough stress. I didn't need any more. After I had finished venting, when they attempted to argue, I wasn't in the mood for it, so I went back inside, shut the door firmly, and warned them to leave my front porch or face serious consequences. They finally took that seriously, got back in their car, and drove off. After a few minutes to collect myself, I decided that I would have to talk to Chelsea about this because this kind of behavior was completely unacceptable, and she needed to know. I called Chelsea to calm her parents down, even though I wasn't sure if they had arrived with her knowledge or not. It was the first time I had spoken to her since the wedding, and she didn't answer the first few times I called, but when I persisted, she eventually answered and sounded irritated. However, before she could say anything more to worsen the situation, I told her what her parents had just done. After I told her everything, she immediately started apologizing to me and dropped the irritated tone. She told me that she had no idea that her parents were going to do something like that because she was at work, and she had already tried to tell her parents not to bother me after they started bombarding me with messages on the phone trying to get me to apologize publicly. I assumed that she was unaware of this because of her reaction, that she wasn't even on board with that and had told them not to bother me anymore. But they hadn't stopped, and she felt awful about it. She was clearly embarrassed, so I didn't want to make her feel worse. So I just told her that it was okay that they had come today, but that I wouldn't want them to come around anymore after this. I hoped she would understand, and after a few minutes of silence as we said our goodbyes, we'd ended the call. I don't know if it was the same for her, but hearing her voice after all this time made me feel very emotional. At least this conversation did not end badly, and we didn't discuss anything that had happened at the wedding. But it's not like we don't need to talk about it and address that at some point. I'm not sure why, but even though we are no longer together, I feel like I still need to talk to her and get her opinion. After 3 years together, I believe that's the least we can expect from one another. But this conversation was pleasant as well. I just hope that she gets in touch with me later so we can discuss whatever transpired at the wedding. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep trying to move on. I've started making plans for the future because now that everything I've planned for the previous 3 years has fallen through, I need to come up with something so I don't give up hope. I've been considering launching my own company, and in a few days I'll speak with my father about it and try to convince him to invest or something. I'm hoping that everything works out, and I probably won't be very active for a few weeks unless something noteworthy occurs. Until then, I'd like to say goodbye and thank you for all of your support and advice. Hello, it's been 3 months since my last update, and a lot has changed since last month, so I finally quit. I'm getting back to normal now that I'm spending more time with my parents. I've made some progress at my job and started working on my own business. Of course, my dad is helping me a lot, and it's nice to see that we've recovered so well from our last argument from my wedding that we hardly remember it anymore. I'm also on good terms with my parents, and Chelsea's parents haven't bothered me since that last confrontation either. I'm not complaining. I suppose I could handle it as long as they aren't pitying me. Now, coming to Chelsea, I had stated that I wanted to get closure from our situation, and that finally happened 2 weeks ago. It was entirely unintentional. I was just at a bar with a couple of my friends, and she happened to be there too, but she wasn't out with her. With my friends and family, obviously, no one brings up Chelsea or the wedding. She was with some guy, and at first I thought she was on a date, so I was really upset and didn't approach her because I had seen her and no one else had. However, she approached me after she saw me there and said she wanted to talk to me. By that time, the other guy had gone, and she clarified that she wasn't on a date. Instead, the guy was a family friend who was waiting for someone else because he had come to meet his date. We are on the same page about that. She just wanted me to know that she wasn't going on any dates because she didn't want me to get the wrong idea and think that she was already going out with other people when she went out with him for the first time. I felt much better after that explanation, and it also made me realize that I still had feelings for her somewhere deep down. But don't worry about that. She apologized for everything and told me that what she had done was completely unnecessary. She also agreed that she had been trying to pressure me at a point where I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. In any case, it had only been 3 months since our wedding was called off, but we had a private conversation for a while in a different area of the bar. My friend waited for me because, of course, this was important. Given that we had always been open and honest with one another while we were together, and that I had always respected her wishes, she could have handled the situation better. She ended up crying a little, and I became very emotional, but at least we got everything out of the way and parted ways. Not as friends, but at least not adversaries, if that makes sense. I suppose this was the closure I needed, so I'm okay with things now and ready to start a new chapter, free of the burdens of my past.